All right, all right. Hey, I hated that I even started that off like that. Look, welcome. Well, as I always say, peace, world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind live stream video. However you tap into this, welcome to you. I want to get into today's special guest, but I do want to throw it out there first. I've been doing these live streams and these interviews with the different guests that I can get, but typically I'm making them available on my It's Always Personal podcast. So whatever doesn't make it on here, do check into the channel and get and look into the link for It's Always Personal, or just remember that you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, as well as Spotify, and then Anchor. But without further ado, let me welcome to Pay Me No Mind producer Mephux.
That's good.
So like I said, man, I appreciate your time today. I've been checking out your catalog over 2020, mainly through Flea Lord's music.
Yep.
And I have to admit, I mean, I've always been the type of music fan or hip hop fan who reads, the inserts or the jackets to, the liner notes, I guess they call it. So I've always been interested in who puts this stuff together beyond just the rapper that we hear. So like I said, when I tapped into Flea Lord in early 2020 and started seeing your name, and then kind of getting an understanding of what your sound was, I was like, let me check in and do it. And then you did a live stream with the cat that does reviews on here, and I know his first name is Marcus.
Yeah, Marquise Walker.
Walker, yeah. So I thought that was dope. And right on time, we're getting some of the early technical difficulty.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
One thing that I wanted to know, man, what is behind the name Mephux?
So there's nothing really behind it. It was a combination of like two words, and I didn't really think about it at the time, and then it just stuck, and I just stayed with it for many, many years. Sorry if you hear that in the background. There's construction going on, so
no problem. You care to share the two words, or are you gonna leave that a secret and just go with me?
That's a secret. It just was two words that I combined together that made Mephux, and then I was just like, all right, fuck it, like I'll stick with it.
Okay. Honestly, that's why I asked you before we went on if you were from New England, because I thought on your Instagram account, I thought I saw you were in Maine or something. So I thought me was like short for ME for Maine. I think that might be the abbreviation for Maine. And then I thought fucks was something like I fucks with you or we fuck. I don't know. I was just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a mystery. It's gonna stay a mystery.
No problem. With that said, you put me on to the fact that you're from Kansas. So how did you make it, or are you still based in Kansas, or are you now on the East Coast?
East Coast. I live in Boston.
Okay, that's what it was. It was Boston that I saw. Obviously, ME isn't short for Massachusetts. I think Massachusetts is MA. But anyway, that's one thing. And as an old school hip hop fan, we don't really always dig into artists and producers' names like we used to. Guys used to spell out their names all the time. So I was just wondering, man.
No, it's something that a lot of people ask me. It's just not a very interesting story, so I usually don't tell it.
He said the name itself is more interesting than the origin.
Yeah. Me fucks with Mephux. Like we fucks with Mephux, or I fucks with Mephux. Like,
gotcha.
Like all those things were kind of like a fun play on the name. But I'm gonna come out with some merch. I think we fucks with Mephux or something.
I like it. So how'd you make it over from Kansas then, man?
So I bounced all over the place. I lived in Detroit for a while. I lived in Virginia for a while. Where else? I guess that's it. I guess that's not that many places. But yeah, I bounced all over the place, mostly for jobs, and ended up settling in Boston. So
Now, does your start with beat making or production? Did that start in Kansas? Is that where
I
that
started
originated?
in Russia, so I grew up in Russia, Moscow, Russia, and I started making music when I was 16, making beats like using Fruity Loops back in the day, um, stuff like that, and then it just evolved more and more um, into you know progressing into the software side and the hardware side of sound engineering, beat production. So the DAW I use now is Logic Pro. That's how I make basically everything that I do now. And just, exploring like all the software that's available for sound engineering is like kind of what I'm focusing doing now. But it all started just from a love of hip hop. That's basically where it came from. Like, my mom used to listen to a lot of funk music and soul music, and that just rubbed off on me. So like a lot of my sampling and a lot of the non-sampling stuff I do is usually pretty soul reminiscent, like, or jazzy. Mostly because of my upbringing, just what I listened to as a kid.
Yeah, I kind of got the jazzy stuff in the work with G4 Jag, and then more of the soulful influences seem to pop up with the Pray for the Evil projects, especially the second.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how did you get to Russia? Born in the States and then grew up in Russia. How did that happen?
So I went to basically parts of middle school and all of high school in Russia. My dad basically just worked over there and just relocated and lived there until I was done with high school, and then came back to the States in 2004. So
Anything about life in Russia that us Americans might either be programmed to think differently or just things that we wouldn't understand? I mean, the relationships between the two countries is still, especially with the previous election before this most recent one, is still kind of adversarial and whatnot. But is there anything that we wouldn't know because we live here and have been told to think certain things about Russia? But how was that experience for you?
I mean, it was a pretty amazing experience. I mean, it was pretty like lawless in the fact that like you could pretty much do what you wanted, and if you wanted to, like, if you did get in trouble with the police, you could pay them off like pretty easily. So it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun to be, in middle school and basically like have the world like, completely available to you. Plus, like, it's a huge city, and just, hanging out in the city was fun. And
What part of Russia?
Moscow.
Okay, right there in the thick of it.
Yep. I lived in the Garden Ring, or on the Garden Ring, which is like a big circle that goes all the way around Moscow, like the Red Square, basically. So
Okay. So how did you keep in touch with what was going on musically then? How did you tap into hip hop and the funk and jazz influences?
well, funk and jazz is from my childhood, like basically what my mom used to listen to. I got into hip hop basically from probably like Big L and Mobb Deep and Gangstar. Like those were my primary like groups that I listened to. Not groups, but artists and groups. So DJ Premier was a huge influence on me as a beat maker. Havoc was like a huge influence on me as a beat maker. Um, and that's pretty much about it. That's there's no real fancy story behind it other than I love the sound, and I love making hip hop, and wanted to give back to the culture. So I decided to pick it up again. Like, I quit for a really long time, focused on work, my day job stuff. And my friend Trill, from Trillmatic Premium Goods, like, got me back into it. I was listening to like one song he was jamming, and I was like, man, I can make a beat like that in 5 minutes. Like, give me 5 minutes. And I ended up making a beat. I don't know if it was in 5 minutes or not, but that beat ended up being the Draco beat used for Conway the Machine's song Draco.
Okay.
So that kind of got me back into it. And ever since then, I've been producing, and met up with Flea at a Conway concert backstage. I was like, yo, like, Flea's pretty dope. Like, Rock America had just come out, like with Ito, like, and it was popping. I was like, yo, let's do a song. And I was so impressed by the first song that he did, which was Steppers, with Conway. I was like, damn, I want to do an album with this guy. Like, I got to, like, we got to make an album for sure. And that's where Pray for the Evil basically came from. And then we just clicked and hit it off, and then started building new ventures together, and eventually ended up co-founding LordMobb together, which is a record label that focuses on boom bap, grimy music, street music. We got a slew of like artists and great producers, and we're just trying to build a movement and trying to build a platform for good artists. So yeah, I've been talking a lot. I'll let you.
I'm just listening. But one thing I did want to go back to your beginnings. You mentioned a couple of names. Usually we ask, rappers, who's your top 5 MCs and whatnot. Who would you look at as your top 5 producers, beat makers?
Oh man, I mean DJ Premier is probably number 1.
That's my number 1. I mean,
yeah, DJ Premier is just come on, like legend. Buck Wild would be in there.
Okay.
Man, I'm gonna miss people. Other good producers that I'd put in my top 5.
And it's crazy because I'm drawing a blank at the minute.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. Like I know Buck Wild and
we get Pete Rock, Extra Large Professor.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to think of like the kind of stuff that I really jammed as a kid, like in the beats that like really motivated me to like sit down and go, wow, like I want to make a beat better than that. I used to listen to a lot of like Souls of Mischief, and I forget who produced for Souls of Mischief.
Okay.
But like I think someone on the crew like made the beats, or it was AP or somebody, or Opio, or I forget his name.
A plus.
Yeah, A plus. Yeah. I used to listen to a lot of like hieroglyphics and shit. Like, that's why I'm always wearing like the Hyro mask, and a lot of the videos just represent the hieroglyphics. But yeah, I don't know. I can't name 5, but I can tell you Buck Wild and DJ Premier are definitely up there. That's for sure.
Got you. Right now, like the current group of guys who are dominating everything, who are you listening to right now, or enjoying what they're doing with the culture right now?
I mean, I listen primarily to LordMobb artists. Like, I'm fortunate enough to have some of the rappers that I love to listen to signed to the label that I'm working with Flea on. So that's pretty much what I've been listening to lately, and I try not to listen to too much stuff because I don't want to be influenced or like make some shit that's like close to other stuff. Like, I like to keep a clean palette when it comes to music. So I listen to a lot of techno music. I listen to a lot of like electronic music. But from a hip hop perspective, like yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one too. I mean, obviously I jam like, Griselda stuff, like, I'd listen to like Trust stuff. I keep my ears open for talent, and like, those guys are all talented. But mostly been like focused on new artists, finding new artists.
Okay. So kind of like the beginning of you finding your style. Can you walk us through that? I had Nicholas Craven on, and he kind of had a similar background as what he didn't have. He didn't grow up in Russia, but just like you said, how old were you when you accepted that challenge about I could make that same kind of beat?
Yeah.
How did you get started in it?
Yeah, I was about 16, and I started off like with like Fruity Loops, which I have no hate against Fruity Loops, but like, that's just, what I started on and got used to from the get-go, and started making beats to rap to. And I used to flow, like, I used to be like, into writing lyrics and like, making my own little songs here and there. So basically beat making came out of a necessity of like, lack of beats. I didn't have anything to rap over. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to start making them. And then I decided that I liked that way more, and I was way better at it than, I was on the latter. So, yeah, I just stuck with it.
Now you sample and you play, don't you?
Yeah, I make some sample free beats. I'm starting to make more and more sample free beats, but I do still sample occasionally. Yeah. But it depends. Like there's criteria and there's things that like, I have to meet before like I sample something completely. Yeah, at least I try to.
Okay.
Like for example, like one of the things I did recently was deconstructed a song using Isotope is a company that makes music plugins, but there's an Isotope plugin called RX, which allows you to basically disassemble a song and basically pull out the bass line, pull out like the instruments, pull out the vocals. And I made a beat, with Soundlord a couple days ago where we basically tore apart a song and reconstructed it and like built a beat out of it. So I'm doing a lot of like experimental stuff with software. Like I'm in the process of building a recording studio here. So, I'm just trying to level up.
Hear you. Now, you mentioned your day job? I don't know if you want to get into whatever that was or not, but did any of that lend itself to getting involved, in terms of building a record label, or like you said, approaching production with all of this software influence or usage and whatnot? Was there any tie-in from what you used to do to what you're doing now?
I would say music got me into what my job is. So my job is I'm a chief security officer for a company in Boston, and basically I deal with cybersecurity. So anything cybersecurity related or compliance related, that's what I deal with.
Okay.
But so like I'm a software engineer too. So like, writing software and building applications is like, another hobby of mine.
So how does that relationship work, man? I mean, coming from that type of, job and having those types of coworkers and being in that world, making money and earning a living, having that as a profession. And then when you start to working with some of the different rappers and what their backgrounds are, how does that work out for you and kind of adjusting to the different types of personalities and whatnot?
I mean, for the most part, like, Flea handles most of the interactions with like, the different artists. Like I just try to sonically make like beats that fit their vocals. But yeah, for the most part, it's good. It's all good, man. I've never had like a bad interaction. I love hanging out with everybody that's involved in LordMobb. Like, I invite them all over to come record at my studio. I was in Cape Cod, like on Provincetown not too long ago, and I was inviting, LordMobb members to come out and record with me. I really like to be there for the recording process, usually just because, it's fun. It's fun to see someone record live to your beat. So I usually tend to like to do that. So.
Gotcha. Are you able to do to do a lot of that? Because there's a difference, we all know, in producing and beat making, and I'm asking because in talking to Nicholas Craven on here a month and a half ago, he basically, I thought it was going to be more of this collaborative effort with him and Ransom, because I thought they had a dope 2020. Yeah. And he was just like, man, I just sent him the beats and he did whatever he did with them, and I was like, it just seemed. I understand that Ransom produces a little bit on his own, so he's able to do that. But I just thought it was the way that the project, the finished results sounded so like there was so much chemistry there, and then to hear that it wasn't all that much collaboration behind the scenes just kind of shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, I collaborate pretty heavily with the artists that I work with, like G4. When we did Regressions, I don't know if you've heard Regressions yet, but yeah, like we spent like the whole time together when we were making that album. And when I work with Flea on his albums, I make all the beats custom for Flea for his voice, which sits mid-range. And G4 has got like a deep voice, so he's more the lower range. Like, So it's like you have to take those into consideration when you're making beats for like different voices. So I mean, I'm cool either way. Like I'm cool with beat packs, or I'm cool with making beats like custom per vocalist. But I don't think it matters. A good beat is a good beat. So
Now, was the We All Fucks project, was that something that was out there prior to you getting involved with Flea, or where does that come into?
yeah, that's something I just put up for fun. Like
Okay.
that's just like some music that I make, you know, when I'm not doing hip hop. So
Okay. I just was wondering, you know, like you said, you started the relationship with Flea at an event and whatnot.
yeah,
I just want, did you have a lot of stuff in the can at that point to put it in front of him, or you just started from there?
basically just started from there.
It's kind of crazy how things can just take off and start nowadays versus, you know, it seemed like previously there had to be so much sweat equity and time spent doing stuff, and now you just get an idea and you figure it out and make it work.
100%.
Which I like that. This next question, man, is not really trying to be funny. I know where we are right now, depending on what you tap into and what, you know, where people spend their time. I think hip hop is kind of all inclusive. I know there's been some, you know, throughout the years, there's been different discussions and narratives on somebody like an Eminem, you know, a white MC and you know, and what's considered a black genre and all of that. I'm just wondering, what's your thoughts on kind of this, what I'm seeing, you know, several non-black producers right now really driving the culture right now and doing some phenomenal stuff, man. I just wonder what's your thoughts on kind of the contribution of, you know, white or non-black producers to the genre.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, you know, I just want to say, like, I agree that it's, you know, like any white MC or white producer is definitely a guest in the house of hip hop, and like that's something that we just need to recognize and not take for granted. So, you know, that's first and foremost. That's my opinion on that. Being white in hip hop just makes me work that much harder. Like I have that much more to prove. Like there's so much that I need to give back to contribute to the culture. Like, you know, that's what I focus on and that's what I think about. So, you know, I just try to stay motivated and give back as much as I can. And hopefully, you know, with LordMobb, we can leave a legacy behind that, you know, will continue to keep the culture alive for as long as we're alive and hopefully longer.
Do you think there's a distinct or a difference in kind of the acceptance as a producer versus the MC, or, you know, because I made a video on here a while ago now about why Eminem never really took off for me in some respects, although I deeply credit him, or you know, credit him, put him at the top of lyricists and rappers and his delivery, all of that type of stuff. But I had some specific reasons of why his music didn't connect with me on a deeper level based on subject matter. But those are kind of different things. It seems like maybe musically, because we're not hearing your thoughts per se, you know, and there's no subject matter to take in. It seems like maybe we can just respect you guys on a different level.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up listening to Gangstar, so I mean everything that I make is basically based off of that. Like as far as like, you know, where the bar is set. I'm notorious for not liking white MCs. Like I'm just not a fan of usually the cadence and like usually the voice, but there's exceptions to that for sure. Like your old Droog, like is a really good MC. There's really good white rappers out there. There's no question about that. It's just it's just not my preference. Like it's not my thing really. Do I think Eminem is good? Yeah, like lyrically, like Eminem is really good. Like The Ringer, you know, where he basically was, you know, doing more battle rap style stuff. Like I'm not into the mainstream stuff, but like The Ringer, the song The Ringer was dope. Like, you know, I thought that was, you know, a nice track. Most of the beats I'm not a fan of. But that's just me. That's a personal thing. Like, you know, I'm more 90s style hip hop than I am anything else.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the reception that I got on my video. Like I said, I really wasn't trying to clown Eminem or take away from him in any kind of way. I was really trying to share why I think what you just hit on, that why some of his music, you know, he might not be regarded as highly by black fans, just because, like you said, I didn't really care for. I gained more respect for him when I actually dug into an album and found and found some of his album joints, the video stuff that they had him doing, and I'm assuming Dre, you know, let him to do. I thought that was a mistake for me. Now the one joint that was on the tunnel, if I get locked up tonight or something, that was one of my more, you know, one of a cut that I really connected with him more on, because it was more straightforward rapping. But it seemed like when he was on that stuff for the singles and the videos, that just didn't do a whole lot for me.
Doesn't do a whole lot for me either, man. Like so one good white MC that I can think of is A$AP Rock. I don't know, like, if you obviously definitely probably familiar with A$AP Rock, but like, I don't know, just like I Gangstar is like set the bar for me. So it's like, you know, if it isn't that kind of content or that kind of message or that kind of delivery, like, you know, I think Guru said it best. It's mostly the voice, right? Like,
right.
It's mostly the voice that dictates whether a song is going to be good or bad. Like, you know, you can only do so much from a sound engineering standpoint and a beat production standpoint. Like, the voice has to be right. And unfortunately, like, you know, just I don't know what it is, but white rappers don't have voices that I think fit well. Like, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't sound good to me. And that's just a personal preference. I'm not saying like all of them are bad. It's just, you know, the voice is just completely different.
Yeah, and it was kind of crazy how, you know, some of the guys over the next 5 years, maybe some of the white guys who came into the game, they all kind of emulated Eminem's sound a little bit, and it was like, how are y'all doing this? Like, that was a little weird to me. But I'm not going, you know, not even trying to be funny, man. I was a huge Search fan. I thought Search had a lot of go, and I liked the uniqueness of and I liked his name, Prime Minister Pete Nice. I like dude, but like I said, I just in seeing, you know, an Alchemist, Nicholas Craven, yourself, it's just like, damn, these dudes are coming into the game and doing a lot of stuff that I really rock with, you know, and based on what you guys were focusing on are focusing on for your sound, I think it's dope. So
yeah.
So how would you you know, how would you kind of describe your sound, man? I mean, you mentioned some sampling, also playing. Then you know, we had the We All Fucks project out there, which was you doing your own thing. But how would you categorize your sound?
Damn, I don't know. It's so crazy because I make such like drastically different stuff all the time. Like, you know, one day I'll make like something grimy, the next day I'll make something uplifting. Like, I'll be into violins for like a week, and then I'll hate violins, and like I'll just want piano loops. Like, you know, it really depends. And like, I started making like trap style music recently. So I kind of went from like 90s style BPMs, you know, like 80 to 70, you know, like to 120 now to like 140 and 130. Just making beats at like different BPMs, seeing what I can do. But I don't really think I have like a sound yet. I think I'm too young, like as a producer, to like have a definitive sound yet.
I guess looking at that part of it right there, how long, I guess, have you like really been in the beat making production role? How long would you say you've really been doing it?
Yeah, so like doing it maybe about a year.
Okay. Yeah. I agree then. I just think in listening to your projects, and I'm gonna get into a couple questions here in just a second on that, but I just think what you're bringing to the sound, you just hit on all of it. It's a little bit of trap. It's kind of universal. It's maybe not bound to any regional sound, but it's the instrumentation that you incorporate, and then the sampling. It's just this different, brighter vibe, but then you still can mix in some of the darker elements too. And I just like, how it all comes together for you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Actually, this question is great for you, based on what you were just telling me about that isotope thing. But any major changes and I know you just said you've only been doing this a year or so, but any major changes in, I guess, the technology, side of producing that you've really taken a liking to, or has been really helpful in where you're trying to go with your sound?
Yeah, like I mean, sound engineering is basically what I'm focusing on right now. So like, how can I basically produce better quality music and master the music better, or mix it better, I should say, before the mastering process. So a lot of the stuff I'm focused on right now is about how to get a cleaner sound, a clearer sound, consistent sound, and just learning how to do that myself.
And that's what I was just touching on, and listening to a lot of Griselda stuff. It was kind of darker and maybe dirtier sounding at time, grimier sounding. And that's what I'm saying. When I'm listening to some of your stuff, it's still getting this hard, like street vibe to it, but it's a brighter sound to it in a way that it just stands out.
Yeah, appreciate that. Like, yeah, I try to. So like, one of my rules of thumb, like, is if I can't listen to a beat by itself, like it's no good. Like, I trash it. So it's got to be able to stand on its own 2 feet and be, I should be able to sit and listen to it and be able to jam to it without vocals. And when I get to that point, like, a beat's created.
Gotcha. And I did just want to I meant to mention some of these names, some of the just the producers out there that I'm just really digging into what they're doing right now. But definitely Alchemist. Storch is a name, from years ago that did some great stuff. Marco Polo is a guy that I like.
Yep.
Superior. I'm assuming that's a white cat from Europe. I haven't seen a picture of him, but I know he hit me up after I reviewed a project of his. But I really like his sound. It's kind of similar to yours in a way. Muggs is a guy that's been out there for a long time.
Yeah, shout out to DJ Muggs. Yep.
Yeah, so I just, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I'm listening to, I look at who produced it, and it's one of those 5 or 6 names, and I'm like, man, what's going on right here? You said you were Kansas, man. Any connection whatsoever to this? What's his name? The Conductor Williams or something?
Nah, I've never heard of Conductor. Like seeing him on that project was the first time that I really got introduced to his music. So I don't know nothing about him.
Okay, I think he's from Kansas as well. I don't know what part, but I just started following him on Instagram after he popped up on a couple of Griselda projects with some decent
fire. Yeah, fire.
Yeah, I thought, and he brings a pretty unique, the way he's chopping up his samples and stuff is pretty intriguing as well. Let me jump into part 2. I'm gonna stop this first recording because I put a little break in here.
Yep.
Get that going. All right, and back with producer Mephux from LordMobb. So that was one question that I did have down. I was kind of putting 2 and 2 together, just looking at you guys as you go along. You're like officially LordMobb in-house producer at this point, or you said co-founded. Kind of what is your role with LordMobb?
Yeah, so I mean, basically I just deal with production. Like I'm a co-founder with Flea and H, but I just focus solely on production. That's where my bread and butter is, and that's what I'm good at. Part of running a company and part of running a startup is knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and basically deciding where you want to put your focus and where you want to pick your battles. So that's just that's my primary focus and care is just the production. I want to make sure that every artist assigned to LordMobb has a good selection of beats. We're trying to move to be sample free. There's a lot of things that are in flux and in motion. Well, you could still sample, but like you got to be careful, and it's got to be transformative, and it's got to be, before 1920s. Like, anything before the 1920s, you can basically sample, without issue. But a lot of good shit comes from the 70s, right? The 70s and
Right.
80s. But you got to be transformative. So like if you're sampling, you got to basically transform that sample to something new, which is something I've struggled on too. So like, like that's something that's like been a hurdle for me to jump over, going from sampling into sample free music. Is like, I'm so used to depending on a structure or a score, and then adding bass or like adding drums to it versus, focusing on music theory and like the actual progression of the song. So I don't know. I'm just trying to switch it up and try new things.
Now, is that more beneficial? I always thought the South had a bit of an edge over the East, because it seems the South did use some sampling early on, but it seems like a lot of the producers were playing a lot more of the music. So in being ignorant in how it all works, I just thought with them not relying on samples as much, it was more the music was more profitable.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, if you don't have to give away royalties, like on a song, like that's phenomenal. So, like, that's where you want to be from a business perspective. But from a music perspective, like, it's part of hip hop. Like,
Right.
is that's just what it is. Like, it's a part of the culture. Like, and it sounds great, and it's like, the beats sound amazing. Like, finding, digging through the crates and finding a really rare sample and flipping it and making it into a beat is a phenomenal experience, right? Like, I wish more people could experience that, because there's a lot of joy that comes from taking that and making something out of it. But at the same time, you got to pay homage to the people that you're sampling and show support. And, the best thing to do if you're doing sampling is to reach out and try to get licensing fees, or pay a licensing fee. Like, so like, do the right thing. Like, pay homage to the people that we sample.
Is that a challenge for you, being, like you said, in handling the production role and duties of a producer? Is it way more challenging or even time consuming maybe to still, to go sample free, but still make the kind of tracks that really drive the style of music that you guys are making? It seems difficult.
It is difficult. Yeah. Like, that's why like so much music theory comes into play, because if you want to try to make really good sample free music, you got to know what you're doing. Like, you got to really know what you're doing. And I'm working on that. That's like basically like what I'm working on day and night is, getting better at building my own samples, if you will. Yeah.
Now, so what do you play, or did you take music lessons back in the day? You self-taught, or
Self-taught, yeah.
And then what instruments do you play?
So I basically just play everything on the keyboard. So all the synthesizers that I use, I play on the keyboard. Yeah, it's all digital.
Okay. And see, that in itself, I mean, we used to write everything off that was keyboard play, in the early 90s. You just kind of wrote that stuff off. Like, we don't even listen to that. We don't even want that. But like I said, now I'm searching to see where something was sampled from. It's a couple different websites you can go to. And I'm hearing some really dope projects or dope records, and then there's no sample. And I'm like, well, how the hell did they make this? So like I said, man, right now, I just think production is just having this resurgence of, of importance and really driving the music. And it just seemed like for a while it was so MC driven. And I don't know. I'm just glad to see what you guys are doing, because I've always, like I said, back in the 80s and 90s, I was always more, and it happened probably from a I don't know if it was from KRS-One's By All Means Necessary. I love the production on there, but I know the first time that I saw the video for So What You Saying by EPMD, like from that moment forward, production just became such it was like just a big focus for me moving from that song on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you kind of hit on this already, man, but Pray for the Evil comes out, I believe, the end of February. February 28th, I think, was the release date on that.
Yeah, something around there.
You come back with part 2 with the sequel in at the end of August, also on the 28th, according to genius.com. What drives the relationship between you and Flea to where that just sounds like an official album for it? It almost sounds gangstarish with me, with the connection between you two. I don't get that from the and he worked with all of these different producers in 2020.
Yeah.
But you guys had just had this different sound that was on the same page, just differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both basically pushed each other to, like, you know, make the best stuff that we could make. You know, that's basically what it comes down to. It was like, you know, I took up the challenge and was like, you know, I need to make some killer beats, you know, for his vocals. And I think at the same time, he was like, all right, like, you know, Mephux is stepping it up. Like, let me step it up lyrically. And, you know, just everything was elevated. Like, you know, yeah, just like everything from the rhyme style to, like, you know, the beats, like everything was just elevated from there. And it's continuing to elevate. Like, we are taking mastering and mixing very, very seriously now. Like, before, you know, we would mix and master, but beats should always have stems. You know, like every beat that gets mixed and mastered, there should be stems for it. And stems are basically just the tracks that, you know, like the kicks or the snares or the hi-hats or whatever, individual tracks, like those should all be available for mixing and mastering. So that's one thing I'm focusing on as an artist right now, is making sure that I maintain those stems and keep them around for the mixing and mastering portion of the process.
Do you think he's getting credit, that Flea Lord is getting credit for the type of artist that he is, or how innovative he is, or just his work ethic? We associate, you know, the top guys with record sales, videos, and all of that type of stuff. But I just, like I said, I tapped into Flea maybe in March. Hadn't heard of him prior to that. And then I just started seeing, you know, all of these albums coming out.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any, and I'm here in Ohio. I don't know of anybody else that even recognizes Flea. But I'm like, and I don't have anybody that I can really tell him to that's gonna consider him on the level that I consider him at.
Yeah. I mean, Flea is just a phenomenal lyricist and rapper, in my opinion. Like, you know, he just has a great cadence on beats, man. Like, he just makes the beats. His voice is an instrument, like, you know, and you got to basically craft the beat to suit the instrument properly. I think Flea is respected because of his work ethic. I mean, the guy is just so dedicated to music, like, and, you know, not just quantity but quality too, right? So and you see that in the projects he works on, and you see that in the producers he works with, and that's why he's slowing down and, like, you know, taking time like this year to do things a little bit differently and more experimental. And we're going to be doing another Pray for the Evil trilogy this year too, so, like, we're going to wrap up that chapter. I think just his consistency is what makes him a good artist.
Is he kind of unique in his attention to detail in the beat selection?
Oh yeah, like, oh my god.
And I hear he gives all of the producers credit in a lot of his verses. We don't get that from a lot of rappers.
No, Flea cares about the producers. Like, he really cares about the producers he works with, like, and he shows them a lot of love, and he doesn't have to, but he does. And I appreciate that as a producer, because a lot of folks, like you said, don't do that. Like, you know, it's a very old school thing to do, to say this is produced by X, this is produced by Y. Once again, I think that's part of the culture, and it should remain that way. But, like, you know, whatever. Like, if people want to do tapes with different producers and mix it up, like, that's cool. But, like, you know, I like the idea of one producer and one artist, right? Like, I like those types of combinations. I don't like mixed bags.
Agreed. And the thing is, it's not a generic like name drop or something. Like he actually, in each producer that he works with, he speaks on something, on a skill or an aspect of their beat making that's specific to them.
Yeah,
That let me know it was an authentic homage or sign of appreciation.
yeah, 100%.
What was the difference in I thought Pray for the Evil 1 was really dope. And then 2, it just seemed like a lot of growth to me, from 1 to 2. And
Yeah, definitely.
2 was just it was awesome to me. It was phenomenal. But
Thank you.
what was going on with you and what you were trying to do there, as the lone producer?
So the first like Pray for the Evil was really tough. Like, I sent beats back and forth to Flea, and like Flea would be like, nah, I'm not feeling this, I'm not feeling that. it took me a long time to really like get Flea's style down to where, he was accepting beats that I was sending him. So Pray for the Evil 1 was like my learning experience. That was me like, hitting the ground running. And then when Pray for the Evil 2 came along, I was like, all right, I got this. Like, I know what sound he likes. Like, I know the vibe that he's looking for. So this is going to be so easy. And it turned out to just be really a lot easier, and it came organically, which is great because, you can tell on the sound that like, it wasn't forced. It was just, an organic thing that just came together. So
was there any discussion beforehand, like on the direction of either project?
oh yeah, yeah. Flea's like always definitely like, involved in like the entire album process. He executive produces. So he figures out the track orders, like he does all of that, like, as an artist. I just make the beats. So like I let him deal with the sonic arrangement and like all of that.
Between either one of them, was there a beat that you sent to him that you couldn't wait to get the feedback on because you felt like you nailed it?
There's a beat that I sent him yesterday that I felt like that, and maybe I can play that towards the end of the podcast. But yeah, like on those projects, there were definitely a few beats that I was like, yeah, he's gonna feel this one, like for sure, like hopefully. And sure enough, yeah, he did. So
got you. I don't know, man. What's the favorite song that you guys put on those first 2 projects? Is there a favorite or
probably Ice Water with Rock Marciano? Like, yeah, that's probably one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one, man. Call the police yet? Call the police yet? Don't call the police yet is a favorite. Cook Up, Gun Line. It's crazy that you mentioned Steppers. That's the first track that you did. That's the first track that y'all did together.
Yep.
So obviously, with you having a Conway on there, and that was one of the that was really a standout verse for me for Conway. Just the mention of the Brian Shaw Shaq jersey numbers and the whatever you would sell dope, whatever that. I don't know all the details of that. I know what he was saying though.
Yep.
But then the whole coming home Zion size, that it just seemed like that verse garnered a lot of attention just on how sharp he was on there.
Yeah.
Was there any feedback to you or a pickup, people tapping in more to the guy who produced the track and Mephux?
Oh yeah, like every time I work with Conway or I work with Flea, like I get a lot of people that reach out and say like really kind stuff about the music, and every person that I've worked with Flea, from Trey the Truth to Westside Gunn to Evidence, like all these people that I've gotten to work with, like it's been a legendary experience, and like I appreciate Flea for making that happen. So. Yeah, it's been a crazy year.
Any requests, to submit, tracks to these people or anything, or are you holding off on that because of what you guys are trying to do with LordMobb?
Yeah, I'm busy with what we're doing with LordMobb right now, so I'm really focused on like producing music for LordMobb artists. That's kind of like my primary focus right now.
And is that also more so because, like you said, you prefer the projects with with the exclusively produced by one guy versus.
Yeah.
Got you. So what was the Draco joint about? And that's one of the interesting aspects of music right now is like not everything has to be on an album. Albums can be 5 songs, they can be 4. It's kind of all over the place right now. But did Draco take off for you in any kind of way? It's kind of this one-off record.
Yeah, so I mean, if you haven't heard of this album, it's called Organized Grime by Conway the Machine.
Okay.
Yeah, check that album out. It was executive produced by and put out by Trillmatic Premium Goods. It's a great Conway album, probably one of my favorite Conway albums of all time. So it's like definitely check that out. I got 2 beats on that amongst like a bunch of other great producers. But Organized Grime, you can find that on all streaming platforms. Check it out. Like it's a classic album.
When did that drop?
I have no idea. About a year ago, like maybe a year, maybe a little more than a year ago.
Okay. So now with LordMobb, and this is kind of maybe devil in the detail type stuff, but is it still loyalty or death, or is that kind of?
Nah, so we cut the death off the name. Like, we didn't want death like associated with the brand, so we basically cut that off.
Smart thinking. I did mean to ask. Well, so what was the sample ratio or the ratio between sample material and original music on both of those projects on Pray for the Evil 1 and 2?
Oh man, I think both of those were samples. Like most of the majority of those were all samples. Now the stuff that I did on the LordMobb compilation, those were both sample free.
Okay.
And a few tracks I did on No More Humble Fashion are sample free too.
Okay.
And then Regressions, obviously, a lot of stuff on there is sample free too.
Now, was it intentional, or did it just end up that way? Trying to maybe have some cohesion in the sound of Pray for 2, but was it intentional to be more soulful on that one?
Yeah, I was specifically going for like the most soulful stuff that I could find.
Yeah, because that one kind of, from the first one, that kind of caught me off guard with how everything kind of seemed so 70s and late 60s. And that's really when I was like, damn, this is Mephux too? So yeah, that was dope, man. Like I said, and you actually commented on my review, because I told you you made a comment on my review of part 2, and I came back, and once I realized it was you, I said I don't know what I was thinking, but I had the wrong album cover in my video.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. And I went to go do a screenshot of my phone, set it down, and anyway, like I just came back and got the wrong album cover. But that was my
no worries, man. It's all good.
I couldn't go back and recapture the energy though, to do a second review to try to get it correct. So I just left it.
Yeah, no worries.
So moving on to the next wave of kind of LordMobb artists, and I haven't fully listened to the new compilation. I think that's been out 2 weeks now or so.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to fully dig into that one and unpack it just yet. But I did want to touch on kind of how do you look at handling the launch of like an artist like G4 Jag, with you guys having Progression and then the Regressions album.
I mean, so what do you mean? Like, how's the process, or like?
I just mean, like, how do you feel? Like you said, you're kind of taking on crafting the sound of LordMobb, and then you have a newer artist, and you're handling all of his production and whatnot. Just kind of what's been the goal with making those 2 albums?
Just exercise, man, to keep spry, man, to make sure that I'm on top of my game when it comes to production. Like, that's the goal. Like, it's just to make the best music that I can make for that particular voice. So that's really the goal, man. That's all there is to it.
Now, and Progression only had the 4 or 5.
Yeah. That only had like 4 or 5 tracks, and then Regressions was 13, I believe.
Right. So what's been just kind of like we see the pray for the evil 1 and 2, what you guys are doing over there and what you're doing sonically there. You just mentioned G4 Jag has this really unique voice.
Yeah.
Kind of what's the thought process in trying to showcase his voice and kind of his content, which is, you know, significantly different from Fleet.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot more work goes into the low end because he's got such a deep voice. Like, you know, you got to take extra care on the beat to make sure that the bass line's not competing with his vocals because he sits so on the low end. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just, you know, taking the voice as an instrument and taking it into consideration and making sure that the beat fits the artist.
It's interesting that you said that because I would have thought I wouldn't have really gotten into his projects because of his voice and it just seems like it's difficult for the guys with the huskier and deeper voices and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I am able to like really clearly hear everything that he's saying. And I think with some of the guys with deeper voices back previously, it felt like there was the music overtook the voice at times and whatnot. So
yeah. Like, for example, for G4, like we had to buy a special microphone specifically for his voice.
That's crazy. Wow. So but how was it you know, working with the guy? Like I said, he's kind of more and I think he's even referenced it at times, like coming off the bench. He did some chorus stuff here and there and then gradually stepping forward, you know, and then gradually working himself into like a you know, an album with 13 tracks on it. What's it like observing that growth process for him?
Amazing. I mean, it's been phenomenal. Like, you know, I think the music that me and G4 make together continues to get better and better and better. And I think every time we do an album, we're going to have, you know, be looking at it and be looking to one up the albums previously. So, yeah, that's pretty much the vibe.
And what's like the pregame on these albums? Because he kind of it's like a really mature sound, and it's a little jazz in there. It's just kind of this different vibe from everything that's out there, and even his subject matter is kind of family related and introspective. We don't get a lot of that nowadays, but that's kind of what's becoming signature for him in a way for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my golden years of hip hop are the 90s, right? And like that's back when, like, you know, and also like I said before, I'm a huge like Guru fan. So, you know, I love conscious rap. I love like knowledge itself. Like I love all that positive energy that comes from hip hop. And sometimes you need it, right? Like Regressions is a complete opposite flip of Progression, but you know, you still got to tell a story, right? You still have to have emotion in it. Like, you know, a lot of the songs in Regressions is emotional. They're very emotional tracks. It wasn't intentional. It just basically just organically grew that way.
Right. That's dope. So I'm gonna get ready to stop this live stream in here in a second. Then maybe, like you said, we can sample or get into some of the other stuff that you haven't released just yet.
Yeah, of course.
But just moving forward, you know, maybe what's on the calendar for the rest of 2021 for LordMobb, you know, as a unit.
So, well, we got the compilation, which is out. We've got artists. We've got 8 artists that are signed to LordMobb, and those 8 artists are all going to be releasing albums this year. So I'm focused heavily on, you know, getting those albums produced and out the door. One that I'm working on specifically right now is with Zaza God. Definitely should check him out if you haven't heard of Zaza God. Only Right was a track that me and him did for the compilation. But I've got a crazy album with him that's coming up, co-produced with Sound Lord and myself.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some new stuff on the radar for sure that's coming up soon.
And then you said the trilogy for
the trilogy. Yep, the trilogy will be this year. So
any time line for that?
No date yet, but like the features are going to be crazy. I can tell you that.
Got you. You said merch is going to be involved, or is in the works? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we got LordMobb hats. These hats, the hat you see me wearing, we're gonna start selling these. We're gonna start selling some hoodies, some LordMobb hoodies, all from the LordMobb.com website. You know, you can log on there and you can buy basically our CDs right now, all of our merch. We're gonna have vinyls for Pray for the Evil 1 and 2 available very soon. Um, so yeah, just keep an eye out on LordMobb.com and always check for new shit because like we put new stuff up all the time.
Now, do you think? Well, I mean, being on your side of it, how do you feel like, and being one of the people that's kind of pushing it? But I was talking to a kind of a hip hop journalist guy last episode, and I was mentioning that this resurgence on the New York sound, or the East Coast sound, has been crazy to watch, and all the major labels have kind of been on the sidelines for most of it. That's just previously they led the way and all of that, but now it's like with Trust, Griselda, LordMobb is kind of taking form now. How do you feel just what you guys are getting accomplished? Is it just organically happening, or is a lot of strategizing going into this? How y'all pulling this stuff off?
I would say both. Like, there's a lot of strategy involved, that's for sure, and like a lot of that comes from Flea. Like Flea's got a vision for where he wants LordMobb to be, and what he wants LordMobb to look like, and how we want to represent LordMobb. Like, it's a lot of strategic, strategies involved, but also it's organic too. It's an organic movement. Like, we're trying to start a movement. We're trying to start a place where artists can go to have a platform and to blow up, and hopefully we can make that happen for the artists we have signed.
Do you think you guys are on the cusp? Like I said, Trust did a lot of good stuff, a lot of great stuff in 2020. Griselda has been cooking over the last 2 or 3 years. Do you think LordMobb is kind of on the cusp of maybe becoming the next brand that's kind of on that same level, has that kind of same footprint in the game?
I mean, I definitely feel so. I'm biased, definitely, but like, I believe so. I believe that we've got really good talent. Like, the artists that we have signed to the record label are phenomenal. We're putting out amazing music. We're bettering the production every single day of what we produce and what we put out. Like, give us a year, you'll see. Like, give us a year, like we'll grow phenomenally. Like, it's gonna be a wonder. It's gonna be definitely interesting to see.
And then last question on this portion of it, like I said, we can go and do that other stuff, however we need to work that out. But as a company, or as a label, is that one thing that's kind of hindering you guys, is the fact that no touring? I heard some comment from Conway on one of or maybe it was just an interview I watched, but Flea Lord attracted a lot of attention and garnered a lot of attention from fans just from being on tour with those guys.
Yeah.
Right now, that's all been shut down for the last year plus and whatnot. So is that something that's kind of looming over what you guys would like to be doing because there's no touring?
I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that we have in the works that we're thinking about doing, like, virtual concerts and things like that. But like, no, not really. I mean, we're just focused on physical goods, collectible goods. We're focused on the physical merchandise. Obviously, when touring opens back up, we're going to have a huge, LordMobb tour. We're going to basically hit up the East Coast and probably the West Coast and do a whole LordMobb concert for sure. No question about that. So it's something we can't wait to do. Like, we can't wait to get out there and start touring again. So.
And you would be aware, how are you guys doing nationally? I know some of the other regions have, over the last 10 or 15 years, the West has done well, the South has done well, the Southwest has done well. Is this resurgence of the New York sound, is it branching out and having success nationally and internationally?
Definitely. No question. Yeah, there's no question on that.
Got you. All right, I'm gonna stop this, and like I said, I'm gonna stop this live stream, and we can kind of figure out how to do the rest of it. I just want to get off of here, and
yeah, sure.
we'll knock that out.
Appreciate you, man.